All right, did anybody else notice that The Witcher Season 2 has basically all but disappeared? I was literally watching that and The Mandalorian in tandem, and we already got The Mandalorian Season 2. Season 3 is basically already canceled, and I haven't heard a damn thing about The Witcher Season 2. What the hell is going on? What? Henry Cavill got taken off of The Witcher to go work on the Snyder Cut? Wait, you mean the Justice League movie? And they're doing what? A 4-hour long cut with a bunch of reshoots. It aired when? Yesterday. Yeah, well, Mr. Cavill, Mr. Snyder, hats off to you guys. Keep doing what you're doing. Alright, Trial Bug Gamers, so we all love The Witcher, and while we are patiently waiting for Season 2 to finally air, and now that the Snyder Cut is finally out, I'm pretty sure we're going to be hearing about the announcement of Season 2 coming real soon. But in the meantime, I got a little something to keep us going. This right here, Geralt of Rivia, the gold label from the Mcfarlane series. Now, if you know, I'm not the biggest fan of Mcfarlane or what they do, but the gold label is something new. It is a little pricier, and it's supposed to bring us a higher contented, or maybe not a higher contented, but just a better overall quality figure. Now, we've seen this before with other people. Hasbro's done it with some of their Deadpool line figures, which came out really nice. So let's see if Mcfarlane was able to clean up their act for something as cool as Geralt of Rivia. All right, so let's go ahead and break it down as per usual. All right, you guys, and here we have the Witcher Wild Hunts 3 Geralt of Rivia. And I will admit, I'm not a big fan of Mcfarlane. I know this is supposed to be his gold label and all that, but I will admit that the one thing that he's always said that he is focusing on the most is a lot of shelf presence, and I'll admit this has a fair amount of shelf presence. So this is the gold label. This is supposed to look a little bit more done up, a little bit better, and I have to say I do like the overall aesthetic of the box itself. So we do get a good shot of Geralt in there looking fairly menacing. The two nice big swords that he comes with, I'm very glad that they came out as large as they were. The gold label at the top left does give it a fairly nice touch, and then of course it just says Geralt of Rivia on the bottom, and for the most part it's a clean look. I like the red background, and it does go all together with the motif that we have here. On the side, all we see is The Witcher, the Wild Hunt 3, and then of course CD Projekt Red on the bottom. And I will admit that on the back we do get a fairly good look of what the figure is going to come out like, and it is a bit of a prototype only because for the most part for me, the face that we get here compared to what we actually got in the figure is a little slimmer. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more on it. Yeah, the one that we get here looks a little slimmer than what we actually get on the figure itself, but for the most part everything else does look like this, and it does encapsulate the look of Geralt of Rivia really accurately. And then on the other side, just some more Geralt of Rivia and then Mcfarlane toys. Let's go ahead and bust this bad boy out. Alright guys, so here is Geralt of Rivia himself, and I will admit a couple of things. So let me preface before I say anything that this is supposed to be Mcfarlane's gold label, right? So it costs a little bit more. I rung it up at Walmart. It was $25 compared to the usual $20 for the Mcfarlane figure. So this is supposed to be an overall more expensive figure, and that is supposed to cover a few things. Now I will say this, Mcfarlane Toys is known for being a compromise company. Honestly, for me, every time I know that Mcfarlane is picking up an action figure, I always know that it's going to be basically some kind of compromise to it. Somewhere there's going to be a cutting of corner or a little bit of something that should be there but isn't. That's just kind of the price you pay with some of these companies. I'm not a fan of that in the slightest bit, and I'm never happy to hear that Mcfarlane has anybody under his label that he's going to put out, because again, I feel like they rush stuff. It's not always the best quality, the way everything feels. But this gold label is supposed to fix a little bit of that, because I do feel that while the prices are fairly inexpensive, I think Mcfarlane should just charge a little bit more and give us a good figure. In this case, we do get some of that. So let me go ahead and break down the overall looks. So this is a clearly good looking sculpt overall. This definitely looks a lot like Geralt of Rivia down to the eyes, the scar, the nicely done white hair, the white beard itself. There's a lot of personality, and it looks very good. It looks dynamic. Now you'll probably seeing this and noticing it too, but it looks like his head is slightly a little too short. It's not that it's short, the neck is just kind of in this position where he's pushed forward a little bit rather than standing straight up, and I can't seem to fix that. I think it's kind of stuck in place, and we'll get to that a little bit later, but it does make him look like he's more hunched over, and I wish that I could put him in a more neutral standing position with his head, because his body itself is not a problem whatsoever. So we do get overall from the front, let me go ahead and break it down, we do get grays for the chainmail all the way through. They look fairly realistic, I'm not gonna lie. We do get browns for the leather on the each gauntlet, other browns that seal together, basically, you know, more leather that seals together all the chainmail and armor pieces, the white of the under trousers of the arms, the brown for, you know, right there, basically the chest, and this entire thing is one piece, so it actually looks fairly clean, fairly nice, fairly realistic is honestly the way I would put it. So that's definitely something that's nice. The belt itself, again, all one piece, but it's sculpted in, not painted in, so there's a lot of depth to it. The leather looks fairly real. The belt buckle right there, that looks pretty realistic to me. A lot of the stitch work that we see, this is a fairly well done figure. The Witcher insignia right there on the chain, and it's actually pretty pointy. It's a hard piece. It's very nice. We do get this metal hook right here, where he would probably hook the heads of some of the beasties that he'd be killing, but yeah, for the most part it's really nice, and it is a soft plastic, which I don't really care about. Now for the bottom of the legs, hold on, let me set up my camera better. Now when it comes to the legs themselves, again, follow up with the same stuff that we were seeing before, a lot of the same colors. Let me go see if I can brighten that up for you guys actually. Cool. So yeah, we do see a lot of the same coloring, but again, a bit of a different kind of texturing down here at the legs, which is nice. It gives them more depth. It's not just the same up top as we see on the bottom. It is similar colored, yes, but we do get a different texture all the way down. Again, browns right here for more leather that would be around his knees, and then the more metallic, almost iron-like color of the boots, which I imagine would still be a leather, not so much any kind of a metal, but it does look pretty nice overall. A lot of detail here. Now on the back, we do get a lot more of the same stuff that we saw on the front, but this time we do get both scabbards, which are removable, but they're both interconnected to each other with a hollow end. I don't like that. I've never liked that, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So we do see these swords. They look pretty nice overall. We do get both sheaths that have honestly a lot to it. The engravings on this one, the X colored pattern leather around it, some of the browns on here, they definitely look, there's a lot going on here, and a lot more of the same coloring on the front that we saw on the back. All the way down through, we see the same coloring all the way down to the bottom of the boots, which again look just the same in terms of color and overall finish as on the front. Alright, so when it comes to accessories, we do get some really nice stuff. So we do get 2 swords and 1 sheath scabbard. Let me go ahead and show you. Yeah, so it's hollow on the back, but unlike some of the other stuff that Mcfarlane has done before, the plastic that they actually use for the sheath is fairly strong. It's not very flimsy, and so it holds it all into place, and it looks fairly flush all the way through. So in this case, I'm willing to give them a pass for doing that. But again, this is kind of what I mean when I say they cut corners sometimes. This is a way to save money, and I don't really like the overall aesthetic when they do that, but like I said, in this case, at least the part that you do see does look fairly nice, and then the swords themselves fit fairly flush, unlike some of the other things. And now let's go ahead and break down each sword individually. There we go. So for the first sword, we do see very nice overall metallic looking plastic to it all the way down. Fairly simple. The cross guard looks nice. I guess what would be leather around the hilt, with again more metal down the center. It looks nice, and these plastic swords are no joke. They're tough, they're tight, they can't stab in the slightest bit. I like this. Some of the other swords we've gotten before have been flimsy pieces of shit, but I guess the extra money that we pay here allows us to get nice, well done swords like the one that we get right here. Now on the other sword, we do get again more of that same look all the way through, a little bit more brown on the hilt itself, and I do like the way they did the crossguard here. This is very accurate overall, and like I said, it is clean and it's tough, and it's a very, very good feeling sword. Again, I like the plastic that they used here. This is the plastic that I wish that they would use all the time, and if it costs a little bit more per figure, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with getting a little bit of a nicer figure rather than getting some of these shit boxes that we've been getting directly from Mcfarlane. So when it comes to articulation, for the most part, this Geralt of Rivia does come with a fair amount of articulation. It does come with Mcfarlane's 22-point system, which for me is often not all that impressive, and I'll get into that in a second, but let me go ahead and show you guys what he can do. So as I mentioned earlier, the head, not all that great. So I was able to raise basically the head just the slightest bit, and he does have a very natural, very beautiful looking neutral pose. He does look pretty fucking badass. I love the hair. I love all the detail that we got overall in the beard, and again, some of the aesthetics to the hair. This really is what it looks like within game, and I think that they nailed it. But when it comes to articulation, we barely get anything out of the head. So in order to have him look up, that's it. And if I want to have him look down, he does have a little bit, just enough to make him look the slightest bit basically up and down, just enough to look somebody in the eyes and then maybe into the chest. And that's basically about as far as you're gonna get, but you do get a full 360. Excuse me, but it doesn't go as far as you would expect. So we do get a full 360 if you wanted to, but the hair really gets in the way. You really got to teeter-tot over each armor piece of the shoulders, basically each pauldron, in order to get him to do the full 360. But he can do it, and he can look in either direction fairly well, so you can have him looking off to the side, so that's nice. So when it does come to the shoulders, we do get a fairly good pose. So when it comes to Geralt's T-pose, it goes above 90 degrees. And what's really nice is that basically the armor pieces right here are very soft plastic, and you can hide the joint under the armor piece just as well as you can sometimes get the bicep armor piece on top of the shoulder. So that is very nice. It looks incredibly clean, and I will give it up to them. This is a clean looking sculpt, especially when it comes to this T-pose. The bicep itself does come with an upper swivel right there, so you do get a twist and you can do a full 360. And again, it's soft plastic, so that is pretty nice. You're not hurting anything by doing so. And then there is a slight butterfly joint that allows, you do get a slight butterfly pose that gets them slightly back, slightly forward, so that's nice. And then you do get double jointed elbows, which allows for way past 90 degrees. I am willing to say that while the sculpt isn't necessarily perfect, it's kind of ugly, but the actual usability of it, that's incredible. That is a lot more than some of the figures that I have shown you guys recently, and I do appreciate that a lot. Now when we do get down to the hands, there is a ball joint right here that does allow for a full 360 of the wrist here, and of course at the ball itself, and then it can go up and it can go down, which is nice because you can basically get an unlimited amount of articulation of where you want to place the hands, which I do like. And then on the other side, the hand is basically identical in that regard. Now the torso is a little tricky. As you can tell, this is all one plastic piece all the way down, and it aesthetically looks very pleasing. It's very beautiful. I do like it. I'm not quite sure what's down here, but let me just show you. He can go forward a fairly good amount. Granted, it does warp the plastic a little bit, which I mean, I guess could be realistic. So he does go forward a decent amount, and then if I want to put him backwards, he can go far enough backwards to show movement. He's not just, you know, a statue in the center of the body. There's definitely something happening in there. And then I do believe, yeah, he can do the full 360, and it's clicking. So yeah, there's definitely some kind of joint system in the middle, and I appreciate it. It gives him a lot more articulation than, let's say, that Deathstroke that Mcfarlane put out earlier that I immediately returned. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. Now the legs is usually where Mcfarlane falls really fucking short. So what we do get in terms of a splits, it's actually pretty fucking good. This is the first time I've ever tried doing that. I did not realize you can get a full splits out of this guy. You can totally Johnny Cage somebody with this dude. That's insane. All right, so I'm impressed by that, but let's go ahead and talk about the bad. So Mcfarlane's been having a bunch of problems when it comes to the legs. Let's see if this one's any better. Okay, so at first initial glance, it is actually pretty good. You can get him to kick straight forward. A lot of the other figures, you can't. You actually have to put them off to the side in order to bring up the leg, but you actually get about 90 degrees with this, which is really nice. It is the same on the other side. We do not get a cut right here, though it looks like there definitely could have been one put, but we do get double jointed knees, and that does get us. It does get us about as far as we'll probably need with this kind of setup. So we do get double jointed knees, and they do come up very far. I don't think you'll need more than this with this type of figure. Now, when it does come to the feet, we do get basically that ball hinge. So moving down, pretty damn far. Moving up, definitely further than some of the stuff I've shown you recently. And then we do get an ankle rocker, which does allow for that much, which is pretty good. It kind of goes at an angle. And same thing on the other side, you still get a bunch. And then you still get that toe pivot, which goes comically far up. I don't really know why you would even have to go up that far, but I'm not going to knock it because you do have it. But now here is my one problem. So let's go back up to the hips. So you can kick forward, right? But there's no cut. And for me, that's a big problem because while I can get him to go up, I want his leg to come out so that I can have him kind of stepping towards somebody like in a fighting pose. And most other figures do come with some kind of cut up here, and whatever they don't have up here in the basically in the hips, you would be able to at least turn this in more. But let me go ahead and show you what I mean. So if I open him up and you look down the center, you can actually see right in there that he does come with basically the leg is a sleeve over what is the articulated joint. So it allows me to do this. You can see how it's kind of moving over it. But when I come down the center and I try to do the same kind of thing, I get only the slightest bit of articulation inwards. And if I try to bring them up, I can get a little bit. And this is something that made me return the Deathstroke immediately, that not only did I only get a little bit of leg articulation and I had to move it off to the side in order to get it to come up, I couldn't pull it in at all. And here's something that I wish Mcfarlane would learn. Why not just make the plastic piece that's right here in the middle, the crotch piece, just a little thicker, and then cut more angled inwards up here so that you can have that extra level articulation to twist it. Or if you don't want to do that and you want to protect the sculpt, just put the articulation in right here. I don't see the problem with that. You would be able to bring the leg out and then bring this to the side to swivel like that. And that would solve a lot of problems in terms of the overall articulation of the figure to give him more posability. It makes it look more stiff. It makes it look like it's just a little bit behind. And I know that they might be doing part of that for maybe costs, but again, just charge me the extra $1 or $2 and give me the articulation. I would rather much have that than to have a more clean sculpt. It's a figure. It's never going to be perfect. It's always going to have cuts and lines and all that things. And here you had a perfectly good chance to be able to hide those joints in here, but we don't get it. And that to me is a really big knock against the articulation overall of Geralt of Rivia. And here we have the Geralt of Rivia. So while I am in no means a fan of Mcfarlane's stuff, I am willing to say that I'm a fan of most companies that are willing to charge a little extra to give us an overall better figure and figure experience. I think the gold label that he has is a good chance for us to see some of those more quality figures, especially for something like Geralt of Rivia. I'm willing to pay more for a more well put together, better QC, better weapons, or at least better quality weapons, because again, some of the flimsy ass weapons that we've gotten before do not cut it. But the two that he comes with, they're almost treated like if they are a personality of the figure itself and done very nicely. And that costs more money, and I don't necessarily mind that. I am not necessarily impressed with some of that leg articulation. You can do the splits, and that is nice, but when it comes to where it counts, because I'm not going to put this guy in splits, but I do want to put him in a more, coming into battle type of a pose. It does bother me that he doesn't have that extra cut at either the top to give him that extra amount, or right there, right above the knee armor. Again, that would have been the perfect place to put it. I think that would have really done wonders for the extra articulation of the figure itself. But for the most part, everything else works very fine, and many of the poses that you're probably going to put this guy in, the articulation that he has, surprisingly enough, is going to work really nicely. Now, when it comes to the figure overall, I will admit that it is fairly impressive. The extra price point does pay for very nice weapons. Overall, very tight joints all throughout, which I've bought in some, like again, that Deathstroke. What a terrible fucking figure that was. I literally busted it out and the arms were so loose. This right here is tight all the way through. It holds a pose, absolutely no problem. It holds the weapons very well. And again, the weapons are very nice in hand. And you can get him probably into most of the poses that you probably would have seen him in the game, or even being played as Henry Cavill in the Witcher series. I think that while I would love to see one of the import brands bring something out of Geralt of Rivia, it is nice that at about a $25 price point, I do get something as nice as this. But I will tell you, I'd be willing to pay $30. That's only $5 more than we're seeing here. I know that to some people they might not want to do that, but for me, I'd be willing to pay that extra $5 to get some extra engineering on this guy, maybe a few more potentially hands that we can add to him, and potentially a little bit more articulation in the head so that we can get an overall better view of him, maybe even an extra head so that I can have another expression of him. I think that $5 extra would cover a lot of that kind of stuff. And again, that might just be me, but I would love to see that so that we can get a more complete action figure like we would with some of the imports without having the import price. All right, so let me go ahead and give you a few size comparisons. So to begin with, we have the heavy Mandalorian from the Mandalorian series, SH Figuarts. And as you can tell, while he is bigger compared to a lot of the SH Figuarts stuff, he is still shorter than Geralt of Rivia. And I'm pretty sure this isn't accurate. If Geralt of Rivia were in, let's say, SH Figuarts form, he'd definitely be shorter than the Commando, because the Commando is supposed to be pretty big. Or should I say the heavy Mandalorian is supposed to be a pretty big guy. So Geralt would probably be just slightly shorter than him if this were more to scale. But of course, Mcfarlane does do things to a different scale. And in this case, this is more of a 7-inch figure. So that's where we see some of that discrepancy right there. But again, not too bad looking, but this doesn't work in any way. Next, within Mcfarlane's own stable, we do get the Curse of the White Knight, Azrael in the Batman armor. And as you can tell, he is definitely taller than our Geralt of Rivia here. Definitely a badass looking figure. This is from Mcfarlane's own stable, of course. And it does look pretty nice. And to be honest, this is within enough of a size. There isn't enough of a size discrepancy here really to say that this couldn't be real. I'm pretty sure if Geralt of Rivia was in a suit of armor similar to that of the one that Azrael gets, he would also be a bit bigger, a bit chunkier, a bit taller. And I think this works out pretty well. This is something that you probably could put in your diorama of, fighting each other, whatever the case may be, and this fits. Next, we're going to have the SH Figuarts Bardock, and as you can tell, not even close. At least the Commando was a bit taller, and that could have been more in scale, but this again makes absolutely no sense. It's funny looking if anything, but again, SH Figuarts is really more of like a 5.5 inch scale, while again here we have more of a 7-inch scale, and you can definitely tell. Now we have Crevo the Bounty Hunter, and obviously this never looks like they would ever be in the same panel of anything, but for the most part, size-wise, this is believable. If Oblivion Land were to come out with another, Crevo-style figure that looked a bit more knightly rather than westernly, size comparison-wise, this is actually pretty correct. This fits fairly, I want to say, fairly well. They match up in size pretty decently, and obviously the anatomy is way different, but height-wise, this is fairly competitive and compatible. Next, we have Zartan, and as you can tell, Zartan is definitely smaller. Zartan is not the smallest figure, and if we look at even some of the bigger figures like Gung Ho, they're a bit taller and they're more in line with, let's say, Geralt's size, so this could still work, but I think Geralt's body structure is just obviously a lot different. This could still work. This could still work. In many cases, Geralt could just really be really tall, but as you can tell, Zartan's head comes up to about Geralt's eyebrow, so it's not that different of a height. It looks a little bit more on camera, but for the most part, they do fit in decently well. This could still work. Or maybe if you just use some of the taller characters like, you know, Gung Ho and the gang, it probably looked like there's not much of an issue here, but there's definitely some discrepancy with some of these smaller figures. Now we have Cable from Revel Tech, and I will admit that this looks actually kind of good. They're almost identically the same height. They're both have gray hair, metallic armor pieces. One has 2 guns, one has 2 swords. So aesthetically, obviously, they're way different, but this isn't technically all that bad. Their arms, legs, and torso are about the same length, proportioned just a little bit differently, but for the most part, that's about the size difference right there. And Cable is one of the bigger Revel Tech figures, so again, probably some discrepancies with the smaller guys. Alright guys, so while I initially believed that I was probably not going to keep this and I was just going to return it and it was really going to be more for just the review, I have to admit that now that I've purchased it, played with it, and kind of seen what this comes with, it still has some of the problems that we do get with Mcfarlane, some of the, you know, cheapness in the way that they decide to package it. He doesn't come with a lot considering the price point, but he is a bigger figure. A lot of Mcfarlane's stuff is really big, and he does have most of the articulation that he'll need. But I will say this, I think Mcfarlane might benefit from a slight size reduction. Instead of being based on this 7-inch scale stuff, just give me 6-inch scale, make it really tight, make everything a lot better, use that money towards not giving me these open-ended, that you can see from the front, open-ended sheaths, you know, give me, you know, closed sheaths, give me more hands, maybe another face, maybe another head sculpt, you know, give me the engineering that for some reason we're not getting in the legs so that he can get better posability overall, some of the engineering that we might need in the head so he can look around better. So I think all those things would come in really nice, but charging a little extra to give us a better quality figure overall, I honestly don't mind. And at a $25 price point, this is a really fantastic figure. I'll admit that this is probably one of the better figures that we've gotten overall in terms of just overall quality, fit, and finish than a lot of the $20 figures that we get from the non-gold label. So again, I think this is one that if you are a Geralt of Rivia fan, I think you are going to like what you get here, and it will be worth the price tag.